The reviews are adoring. They call it heart-stopping, in a class of its own, the pitch-perfect show. Just some of the superlatives from the critics about the musical Jersey Boys. The show won the 2010 Helpman Award for Best Musical in Australia. It ran for 14 months, sell-out houses in Melbourne. It's now playing in Sydney. It is, of course, the story of Frankie Vallie and the Four Seasons, the 60s supergroup that had a unique sound and unforgettable hits, including Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Rag Doll, Walk Like a Man, Candy Girl, Oh What a Night. It goes on and on and on. This week, there'll be a very special guest at the audience of Jersey Boys in Sydney, Frankie Vallie himself. Frankie's in Australia with the Four Seasons for a special performance this Saturday night at Canberra's Enlighten festival. Frankie Vallie joins us this morning in the breakfast studio. Frankie, welcome to Radio National Breakfast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Frankie Vallie, how tough was it? How tough was it growing up in your neighbourhood in New Jersey? I mean, there's a criminal culture. It was almost par for the course that blokes, nicked cars and did all sorts of dodgy things.
I think it was as tough as it would be in any country that you lived in a poor environment or a little less the standards of not even close to middle class. It was a struggle. Most of the kids I grew up with didn't go past high school. Some of them didn't even get through that. So if you didn't have anything going for you, there were a few different areas you could have gone into. One of them was just get a normal job without any real future, or get mobbed up, or get into crime in some other way. And those were your options. Unless you really felt very strong about something that you wanted to do. In my case, that's exactly what happened.
Well, let's talk about that. What you had going for you, because it's clear in the musical, in the story of Jersey Boys, you are a bit of a clean skin. You seem to have a pretty clear, let's call it, a value base for want of something else to call it. Was that something that was instilled as you was a child, or did that come because you were so driven to do the music?
Well, I first of all I had an interest very early on being a singer, without any clue how that was ever going to happen. I said, this is what I want to do, but I had no direction or anything. I can remember my very first performance in elementary school, where it was a Christmas recital, and I sang White Christmas. And I liked the feeling of being on a stage and getting the attention of an audience. With that, I did a lot of impressions. I bought, in those days, they sold songbooks, and they had all the lyrics of the top 40 songs. And I would learn all the songs and sing all the songs.
Did it help there was another very famous Jersey boy on stage singing, Frank Sinatra? I know you saw Frank Sinatra perform when you were a young boy. Did that help you realise that there was this future?
There was, but still I had no clue as to how I could get there. In the back of my mind, I knew what I wanted to be. My mom took me to see Frank Sinatra when I was very young in New York City at the Paramount Theater. And I knew exactly then and there that that's what I really wanted to do. How I was going to get there, it was just really still a mystery.
Your path to getting there was, of course, your voice, and you're renowned for that powerful falsetto voice. Some call it stratospheric. Other groups, say the Beach Boys, have used falsetto in background harmonies. Did you know that was something unique about you? Did you foster that range because of its difference, or was that just where you sang?
Well, the advantage that comes from doing impressions is you learn on your own how different artists get to where they are and how they get the sound that they get. And I just took from a lot of different people that I really liked. As far as lyrics were concerned, I never really wanted to be a pop singer. So I started right out early on in my life where, I was into Sinatra and I was into jazz. I was into people like Dinah Washington and Billy Eckstine and
So
Sarah
crooning
Vaughan.
and
Yes,
soul.
and Nat King Cole and some of the really fine singers of that period. Uh, and with trying to get a success that way was next to impossible. So I'm listening to the radio and they're playing all this pop music in the 50s and it's early rock and roll and a lot of R&B. And one day I said, I can really do this stuff, and I've starved long enough and I started to do it and a success came out of it.
Let's hang on to what we got. Don't let go, girl. We got a lot between us. Hang on, hang on, hang on. What we got. You are dynamite, yeah.
You're a hit machine, as it turned out. But it is interesting because I think the Four Seasons' first hit record was Sherry in 1962. Happens to be the same year the Beatles had their first hit single. And yet, in a way, your sound's completely different. So these two bands that turned out to be mega bands, completely different audiences existing for the two of you? Was there a crossover?
I think there was a mixture. Later on, I found out that the Beatles were big fans of the Four Seasons, and the Four Seasons were certainly big fans of the Beatles. It was really wonderful in that period of time. It was still in a place where it was called Top 40 Radio, and radio played 40 records, whether they were hits or not. That how would you develop a hit unless somebody played it? And as time went by, radio began to change to where it is today. And most radio stations or programming is one kind of music. And it wasn't that way with pop radio. It played R&B, it played gospel, it played jazz, it played country, it played
So there might have been
everything.
the Beatles, Aretha Franklin, Frankie Vallie, Elvis.
All in the same programming. It was almost like the old Ed Sullivan show, a little something for everybody.
So did you, for instance, did you and the Beatles or you and the Beach Boys or you and Elvis Presley, did you cross over at events? Were you friends in a sense?
Yes, to some degree we were. I was probably more friendly with the Bee Gees than I was with the Beatles.
Talking of falsetto.
The Beatles were almost untouchable. They had management that kept walls up. But I can remember being in Rome one time, and I was just vacationing, and somebody told me the Beatles were staying in a hotel, and I just went over to the hotel and picked up the phone and asked to speak to Paul or John or Ringo or any of them. And they got on the phone, and I spent the rest of the day with them. And it was terrific, and we talked about each other's music, and it was really a wonderful experience. And Elvis was terrific. He was really a great human being who was open to people, and I think he would have been a happier man and probably still alive had he really been able to know and be there where he could actually touch the audience and they could touch him. I think that kind of isolation is what creates a situation where artists have short lives, like also in the Michael Jackson situation.
Well, nothing short about your life or your career. In fact, it keeps reviving itself. There was a television appearance. You were a character in The Sopranos, Rusty Emilio in the Sopranos. Were you attracted to that because it kind of mirrored elements of your youth?
Well, there was so much about that I knew from growing up and living in neighborhoods where there was a lot of organized crime presence. At one point or another in my life, I'd got to work in so many clubs that were owned by these people. So,
The mafia.
yes, with nothing more than the fact that they gave you a job, and if they liked you, they were in the audience, and they bought you drinks, and you kind of hung out in the place, but never really knowing what they actually did.
So then when you became a part of the Sopranos team, did you have something to add? You had something to contribute to them?
The funny thing about The Sopranos was that when I auditioned for The Sopranos the first time, I auditioned for David Chase, and he said, I really like your character, he says, but I don't think this part is right for you. He said, I'm going to write something for you, or wait till something comes up. And it took 4 years.
But you made it. Frankie, a Hollywood movie is in the pipeline, a Hollywood movie of the Jersey Boys story. Who would you like to see play Frankie Vallie?
I would personally like to see somebody who's new. I don't think, Jersey Boys has had an incredible success with all unknown actors, and I don't think it would be any different in doing a movie. I don't think it needs star power.
Well, there's a version of Frankie Vallie in the Four Seasons playing in Australia at the moment, so you're still up there playing your music. It's a question it's hard to resist asking every successful artist, a hit machine like yourself and the Four Seasons. What's your favourite song?
I don't have a favorite song. The funny thing is music is really strange. It becomes so much a part of you, it's almost like having children. And someone comes to you and says, now, which of these kids is your favorite one? Yeah.
Frankie Vallie, it's a pleasure to talk to you on Breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. That was lovely.
Yes, you're a good interviewer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, mate. Terrific. I hope you enjoy the show. I know you will enjoy the show. It's so funny. The lead character looks like you. He's physically quite similar to you.
I met him. I met him in Las Vegas.
Do you know what I mean?